Her husband went to New York with his mistress to have a baby. He called the butler and said, "Keep it secret. Don't let my wife know." The butler replied, "Your wife sold the $220 million mansion and has already left." Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories, your own family story channel. Heavenly God, as we move toward the season of Christmas, I ask you to pour your mercy and light upon every soul in this family. Bless every woman with strength that never breaks, patience that never runs dry, and dignity that the world can never take away. She is the heart of the home, the keeper of love, the quiet power behind every smile and every success. Honor her sacrifices, heal her wounds, and crown her life with peace. Lord, bless this family with health, unity, and hope. Let this Christmas bring healing where there is pain, warmth where there is loneliness, and faith where hearts feel tired. Protect every home, guide every step, and remind us that love is our greatest miracle. Keep this family together in kindness, respect, and truth. If your heart is true, like the video. If your love is real, write, "I am with Mr. Peter." The champagne had gone flat an hour ago. Tanisha Norwood sat alone at Mastro's Steakhouse, her crimson dress drawing sympathetic glances from the waiter who'd stopped asking if she needed anything. The candle had burned down to nothing. 15 years. 15 years ago today, Christopher Bale had slipped a thin gold band onto her finger in a downtown courthouse, both of them grinning like fools because they were too broke for a real wedding but too in love to wait. Their first anniversary lived in her memory with brutal clarity. Christopher's studio apartment in Koreatown barely fit his drafting table and their bed. He'd pushed everything against the walls, spread a blanket on the floor, and attempted spaghetti, burned the garlic bread black, overcooked the pasta, but he'd lit 20 candles and slow danced with her to Al Green playing through his laptop. His hands, rough from construction work, were gentle when he whispered, "Every year gets better, baby. I promise you, every single year." They'd made love on that blanket afterward, laughing when neighbors pounded the wall. Young, broke, deliriously happy. "Ma'am?" The waiter's voice carried that particular gentleness reserved for women being stood up. Tanisha checked her phone again. Nothing. She forced a smile. Just a few more minutes. 3 hours and 47 minutes. Around her, couples shared desserts and whispered secrets. Christopher's text from 6 o'clock glowed on her screen. "Running late, baby. Be there soon." Her phone rang. Christopher. "Baby, I'm so sorry." His voice was breathless, panicked. Airport announcements roared in the background. Her stomach dropped. "Where are you?" "LAX. Emergency in New York. The Jensen project is collapsing. I have to fly out tonight or we lose everything. I feel terrible about dinner, but next weekend we'll go anywhere you want, I swear." A woman's laughter cut through his words, young, light, carefree. Then a female voice, intimate. "Christopher, they're boarding, we'll miss it." Silence stretched between them like a wire about to snap. "Who is that?" "Just Sienna, my project coordinator. She's reviewing designs with the New York team, completely professional. Baby, they're closing the gate. Have a safe flight." She ended the call before he could respond. Her hand was steady, placing the phone down. The waiter appeared. "Just the check. Box everything." She drove through dark Los Angeles streets in complete silence. Their Bel Air mansion was dark when she arrived, 7,000 square feet of marble and lies. Christopher had kissed her deeply that morning, said he couldn't wait for their anniversary dinner, that he had a surprise planned. He'd forgotten his laptop on the kitchen counter. Tanisha poured herself wine and opened it. The email application was already running. She didn't need passwords. The first message made her hands shake. Flight confirmation. Christopher Bale plus Sienna Park. Seats 2A and 2B, first class to JFK, April 15th. Today. Their anniversary. She scrolled through his inbox. Hotel reservations at the Mark. Restaurant bookings at Le Bernardin. Tiffany receipts for jewelry she'd never seen. Then she found the email that stopped her heart. Dr. Martinez confirmed Sienna's appointment for Thursday, 2 p.m. She'll be 24 weeks. We can find out the gender if you want. Congratulations. 24 weeks, 6 months pregnant. Her nursing brain calculated automatically, conceived in May. She remembered May with perfect clarity now. Christopher had gone to San Francisco for a week-long architecture conference. Came home with expensive gifts, a diamond bracelet, declarations about missing her. They'd made love that first night with intensity that had surprised her. She'd thought it meant they were reconnecting. He'd been washing off his guilt with diamonds and sex. She read email after email, clicking through months of lies. Sienna Park, 27, interior designer, started at his firm 9 months ago. Photos showed a beautiful woman with auburn hair and effortless style that came from never worrying about money. In one photo, Christopher's hand rested on her back at an industry awards dinner. Tanisha remembered that night. He'd told her spouses weren't invited, that it was professionals only. In another photo, they bent over blueprints together in what looked like his office, his face alive with passion and excitement in ways Tanisha hadn't seen directed at her in years. The most recent photo showed Sienna's hand on her rounded belly while Christopher kissed her temple, both of them glowing with the kind of pure, unguarded joy that made Tanisha's chest ache. The kind of joy Tanisha and Christopher never got after her miscarriage 8 years ago. She remembered that day with terrible clarity. 12 weeks pregnant, waking up bleeding, the emergency room, the ultrasound showing no heartbeat where life should have been. After he'd held her while she cried in that hospital bed, then slowly, gradually pulled away emotionally over the following months until she understood without words that trying for another baby was off the table. That chapter was closed. He never said it directly, but she felt it in the way he tensed when she mentioned children, the way he changed the subject, the way he stopped touching her the same way. He'd wanted a baby, just not with her. Tanisha closed the laptop carefully, picked up her wine glass, walked upstairs to their master bathroom with its enormous soaking tub and windows overlooking Los Angeles spread below like scattered diamonds. She turned the water as hot as she could stand. Added the lavender bath salts Christopher had given her for Christmas, still in their expensive packaging, because he'd never asked if she liked lavender. She sank into the scalding heat. Steam rose around her reflection in the mirror. 39 years old. Still beautiful, people said, though she'd stopped believing compliments around year 10 when Christopher started working until midnight and coming home too exhausted to see her. She should cry, should scream, should call her sister or mother or someone who would tell her what to feel. Instead, she thought with the ice-cold clarity of the trauma nurse she used to be, the woman who could assess a crisis and act while everyone else panicked. Christopher had a baby on the way with a woman young enough to laugh without sounding tired, beautiful enough to photograph well at his industry events, sophisticated enough to understand architectural terms and fit seamlessly into his new world. He'd booked first-class seats on their anniversary, like money meant nothing, though he'd told Tanisha last month they needed to cut back on expenses when she wanted to donate $5,000 to her old hospital's fundraiser for maternal health. The irony wasn't lost on her. He was in the air right now, 30,000 feet above the ground, probably holding Sienna's hand during takeoff the way he used to hold Tanisha's when she was afraid of flying, back when he still noticed her fears and cared about comforting them. 15 years ago, he'd burned garlic bread in a tiny apartment and promised her the world. Now he had the world, and she was the wife he'd forgotten in the oven, burning down to ashes while he built his empire on her sacrifice. Tanisha sank deeper into the water until it covered her shoulders, closed her eyes. The grief would come later. Right now she needed to think, needed to plan, because Christopher had made a catastrophic mistake. He'd underestimated her. Thought 15 years of making herself smaller meant she'd forgotten how to be dangerous. Thought her love made her weak. He was about to learn exactly how wrong he was. About to discover that the woman who'd given up everything for him still remembered who she'd been before. The nurse who'd saved lives in emergency rooms. The woman who'd secured funding for a community clinic before abandoning it for his dreams. The fighter who'd stood by him when his own family rejected him. She'd rebuilt him from nothing once. Believed in him when his own family had cut him off for dating a black woman from the wrong side of town. paid their rent with her nursing salary while he built his portfolio, given him $85,000 of her clinic money when he needed it for his first big commission. She could dismantle him just as easily, knew exactly where the weak points were because she'd helped build the foundation. The water was cooling now, but Tanisha didn't move. She stared at the ceiling and began calculating. The house was in both their names. The bank accounts she'd helped fill. The firm she'd supported with her own money when he was nobody. The family who'd never accepted her but would celebrate her destruction. Christopher thought he'd won. Thought he'd successfully traded up from the starter wife to the model that matched his new life. He had no idea the war was just beginning. No idea that the woman he'd betrayed so casually was about to show him exactly what happened when you underestimated someone who'd loved you enough to disappear. Tanisha stood up from the bath, water streaming off her body. She looked at herself in the mirror, really looked, and saw someone she barely recognized. But underneath the hurt and betrayal, something else was emerging. Something sharp, something unforgiving. She dried off slowly, methodically, put on her robe, walked back downstairs to the kitchen, picked up her phone and deleted every text message from Christopher without reading them. Then she opened her contacts and found a name she hadn't called in 15 years. Rita Washington, her old nursing supervisor, the woman who'd told her she was making a mistake, giving up her clinic for a man. The phone rang 3 times before a familiar voice answered. "Tanisha, baby, is that you?" "Rita," Tanisha said, her voice steady as steel. "I need your help. It's time to remember who I used to be." Chapter 2. The voicemail. He meant to delete morning came with cruel sunshine flooding through the guest room windows. Tanisha woke alone, which wasn't unusual, but today the emptiness felt prophetic. She'd moved to the guest room after her bath, unable to sleep in the bed she now knew had been violated. Her phone glowed with Christopher's message from 1 in the morning New York time. "Landed safe. Hotel is beautiful. I'm so sorry about dinner, baby. I love you so much." Words that once meant everything, now just sounds he made. She got up, wrapped herself in the robe he'd bought her last birthday in the wrong size with tags still attached because he'd never noticed she hadn't worn it. Walked downstairs barefoot on marble that felt ice cold. The house was silent except for the refrigerator's hum and distant gardeners. James wouldn't arrive until 8. She had time. The laptop sat on the kitchen counter where she'd left it, but her hand bumped something else. A phone, not hers. Sleek black iPhone in leather, tucked under yesterday's mail pile. Christopher's second phone, the one she'd never known existed. She picked it up, pulse hammering. The screen lit up. No password. He'd been so panicked about catching his flight, he'd forgotten to lock it. The voicemail icon showed 47 unheard messages. Tanisha sat at the kitchen island and pressed play. The first voice made her entire body go rigid. Christopher's mother, Eleanor Bale, with that crisp Connecticut accent that had always made Tanisha feel examined and found wanting. "Christopher, darling, your father and I know about Sienna's pregnancy. We've discussed it extensively and we believe you need to start preparing Tanisha for the transition. She's been an adequate wife considering her background, but you've outgrown her. You deserve someone who matches your current station. Sienna comes from the right family. She attended Dartmouth. She understands your world in ways Tanisha never could. We're having her to Greenwich for Thanksgiving. The family should know her properly. Your father is quite taken with her already." The message was dated 3 months ago, November, while Tanisha was planning their anniversary. Her hands went numb. She pressed next. Christopher's brother Andrew, voice full of casual cruelty. "Just met Sienna at your office. Bro, I get it now. Tanisha was perfect for the struggling phase when you needed someone to believe in you and pay rent. But this is different. Sienna is legitimately stunning. She actually understands what you do. She's not faking interest like Tanisha. Dad said you're finally thinking smart instead of with guilt. Call me." Message after message. His sister arranging Sienna's baby shower in Connecticut. His college roommate joking about upgrading from the starter wife. his business partner discussing managing the Tanisha situation without damaging the firm's reputation. His father, cold and clinical, about divorce lawyers who specialized in protecting assets from wives who didn't actually contribute. Everyone knew. His entire family had met Sienna, welcomed her, planned a future that erased Tanisha like she'd been a mistake they were eager to correct. She listened to all 47 messages with a face that stayed calm, even as something inside her shattered and reformed into something harder. Messages from his aunt about finding Sienna the best obstetrician in Connecticut, from his cousin about trust funds for the baby, from his fraternity brother about celebrating Christopher's new chapter. Not one person mentioned Tanisha except to discuss her disposal. The final message, saved 2 days ago, was from Sienna herself, voice soft and young and breathless. "Baby, I felt her kick this morning. Our daughter. She kicked so hard it woke me and I just laid there feeling her move inside me. She's going to be fierce like you. I can't wait until you can feel it yourself. Hurry home to me. I love you so much." Tanisha set the phone down carefully. For a long moment she just breathed, in through her nose, out through her mouth. Controlled breathing from her nursing days when patients coded and everyone screamed and she needed to stay calm to save lives. Except this time, the life bleeding out was her own. She remembered meeting Christopher's family that first time. 6 months into their relationship, he'd been terrified, pacing, warning her they were difficult, traditional. His mother had looked Tanisha up and down like a jeweler examining a fake diamond. His father asked within 5 minutes what her parents did. When she said her father drove a bus and her mother cleaned houses, the temperature dropped to Arctic. After that dinner, Christopher found her crying in his car. He'd held her so tight she couldn't breathe, voice fierce. "I don't care what they think. You're who I love. You're who I'm marrying. They can accept it or stay miserable, but I choose you. Always." He'd been 25, so certain, so passionate. But somewhere between that apartment and this mansion, between struggling for rent and running a multi-million-dollar firm, between needing Tanisha's belief and having the world's validation, he'd decided she was the one element that didn't match his aesthetic anymore. Keys in the front door. James, arriving early. He found her sitting motionless at the island, staring at nothing. "Mrs. Bale?" Genuine concern in his voice. "Is everything all right? How long have you known James?" He went still. "Ma'am, I'm not sure." "Please," her voice cracked. "Everyone else has lied, his family, his friends, him. Please don't you lie too. I can't take it." James was 65, had worked in service his entire life, had mastered neutrality like an art form. She'd never seen real emotion on his face. But now his professional mask crumbled, showing shame and grief and anger. 8 months, he said quietly. "Since last summer. She started coming here while you volunteered at the clinic on Tuesdays. I wanted to tell you. God knows I lost sleep. But it wasn't my place, and I needed this job, and—" He straightened his shoulders. "There's no excuse. I failed you." "Did they use my bed?" James closed his eyes. "Yes, many times, every Tuesday like clockwork. I changed the sheets after, hated myself every time." Tanisha nodded slowly. Not just Christopher, not just his family, but her own home violated while she was out trying to help people. "If I fight back, will you help me? Will you testify if I need you?" James looked at her for a long moment, then reached into his jacket and pulled out a flash drive. "I've been documenting everything for 4 months, he said quietly. Photographs, security camera videos before he could delete them. Detailed logs of every visit, every lie, every expensive gift bought with money you helped build. I told myself I was protecting you in case you asked. But honestly, watching him betray you made me furious. I'm an old man who doesn't get many chances left to stand for something right." Tanisha took the flash drive with trembling hands. "Why risk your job for me?" "Because my wife Eleanor passed 5 years ago. We were married 38 years. She stood by me through poverty, through my drinking years, through every failure, never wavered, never made me small. Watching you do the same for him, watching him throw that away for someone shinier." He cleared his throat. "You deserved better from the beginning, Mrs. Bale. Some of us could see that." Tanisha stood slowly, walked around the island, hugged this dignified man who'd finally chosen her side. "Thank you, James. What do you need?" She stepped back, and something in her face made him stand straighter. "Call the realtor who sold us this house. I want it listed today. I don't care about top dollar. I want it sold within 1 week. Mrs. Bale, you should consult an attorney first. The house is in both our names. I checked the deed last night. California law says I can sell without his signature. Christopher is in New York playing house, thinking I'm home crying. He has no idea what's coming." James's expression shifted to something like satisfaction. "What else?" "Pack everything of his, every suit, every award, every photograph. Ship it to his office. I want every trace of him gone before this house sells." "It would be my pleasure." Tanisha picked up Christopher's second phone, scrolled through those 47 messages one last time, handed it to James. "Add this to your documentation, every voicemail, every text, every piece of evidence." She walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the pool and city beyond. Her phone buzzed. "Christopher. Good morning, beautiful. Meetings all day but thinking about you. Miss you so much, baby." She stared at those lies typed by thumbs that had probably touched Sienna's pregnant belly this morning. She typed back, "Hope your meetings go well." No, "I love you" at the end. First time in 15 years she'd omitted those 3 words. James stood waiting, this unexpected ally. "One more thing. I need the name of the absolute best divorce attorney in Los Angeles. Someone vicious, someone who destroys people in court." "I know just the woman," James said, almost smiling. "She was my late wife's friend. Never lost a case she cared about winning." "Perfect." Tanisha turned to face him, eyes dry and clear and certain. "Because I don't plan to lose. Not anymore. Not ever again." Chapter 3. The clinic she abandoned for him. The coffee shop on Crenshaw Boulevard smelled exactly like Tanisha's past. She sat in the corner booth Saturday morning, hands wrapped around untasted Earl Grey, watching the door with the patience she'd learned in emergency rooms. 3 days since discovering Christopher's double life. 3 days since setting the house sale in motion. He still texted sweet lies from New York about missing her, about closing the deal soon. She'd responded to exactly none of his messages since Thursday. The door opened, and Rita Washington walked in. 63, silver hair, sharp brown eyes that missed nothing. She'd spent 42 years running emergency rooms like military campaigns. She spotted Tanisha immediately, face lighting up with joy that dimmed when she got close enough to really see her. "Baby girl," Rita said, sliding into the booth, gripping Tanisha's hand hard enough to hurt. "I was so happy when you called after all these years, but you sounded strange, and you look worse in person. What happened?" Tanisha had trained under Rita 15 years ago at County General, back when she was a nursing student with dreams that frightened and thrilled her. Rita had been her mentor, the woman who'd written glowing recommendation letters and stayed late to teach advanced skills and told Tanisha she was going to change the world. "Do you remember what I was planning before I got married?" Rita's expression shifted, became careful. "The clinic, South LA Community Health Center. You'd secured funding from 3 foundations, had a location on Vermont Avenue, recruited 5 nurses to volunteer. You were going to provide free maternal health care in one of the deadliest areas in the country for pregnant black women." She paused. "And then you met Christopher Bale, and 6 months later it all disappeared. You told me you were putting it on hold temporarily." "I didn't put it on hold," Tanisha said, shame burning in her chest. "I killed it. 1 week before we signed the lease, Christopher got offered his first major commission, a museum renovation in Santa Barbara, his big break, but he needed $85,000 for the presentation, detailed models, fancy renderings, the right consultants. He didn't have it. His family had cut him off financially for dating me. Banks wouldn't loan to him." "So you gave him the clinic money?" Rita's voice was flat. "Every penny. Everything I'd raised over 2 years of grant applications and fundraising. All my personal savings. $85,000 that was supposed to save lives. Tanisha laughed bitterly. He promised to pay me back in 6 months when the commission came through. That was 15 years ago. He never paid me back, and I never asked. I convinced myself that supporting his dreams was the same as having my own, that we were building something together. Rita was quiet for a long moment, her eyes understanding too much. Why are you telling me this now? Instead of answering, Tanisha pulled out her phone, showed Rita the email about Sienna's pregnancy, the voicemails from Christopher's family, the photos from James's flash drive showing Christopher and Sienna in her bed. Rita's face went through shock, rage, deep sorrow, before settling into something harder. Sweet Jesus, Tanisha, I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. Be honest with me. What happened after my clinic didn't open? What happened to the women who would have come there? Rita looked away, out the window at the busy street. Are you sure you want to know? I need to know what my choice cost. Rita pulled out her phone, found an article, slid it across. This was published 8 months ago. The headline destroyed Tanisha. South LA maternal mortality crisis, 3 preventable deaths in 6 months. She read about Destiny Williams, 23, who died from eclampsia because she couldn't afford prenatal care, about Diamond Ross, 19, who hemorrhaged to death after giving birth at home because she was terrified of hospital bills, about Jasmine Porter, 31, mother of 2, who died from undiagnosed gestational diabetes that 1 free screening would have caught. Your clinic was designed specifically to catch these cases, Rita said softly. Free prenatal care, free screenings, education, support groups. These 3 women lived within 6 blocks of where your clinic was supposed to be. Tanisha stared at photos of 3 dead women younger than her who'd had families and dreams cut short by poverty and a system that didn't care. I could have saved them, she whispered. Maybe, probably. But you chose him instead. The words were brutal, but Rita's voice was gentle. Tanisha needed to hear it. I didn't just lose myself in that marriage, Tanisha said, voice breaking. I lost them too. All those women, everyone who needed me, and I wasn't there because I was too busy being the perfect wife to a man who was planning to replace me. The memory flooded back. The night she'd told Christopher about giving him the clinic money. They'd been in bed in his apartment, her head on his chest, his fingers tracing patterns on her shoulder. Are you absolutely sure? He'd asked, voice thick with emotion. This is your dream, baby. I don't want you giving up your dream for me. Your dream is my dream, she told him, believing it completely. When you succeed, we both succeed. We're a team. The clinic can wait. You can't. He'd made love to her after that, slow and tender, whispering that he loved her more than anything, that he'd make this sacrifice worth it, that they'd build something beautiful together. You're crying, Rita said gently. Tanisha touched her face, surprised to find it wet. She'd been so controlled for days, moving through the wreckage with surgical precision. But sitting here, confronted with the cost of her choices measured in lives that ended too soon, the dam finally broke. He took everything from me, she said through tears. My career, my dream, my chance to matter, and now he's throwing me away like garbage because I'm not young enough, not sophisticated enough for the life he has now. And those women died because I let him. Rita slid around to Tanisha's side of the booth and pulled her into a fierce hug, letting her cry the way she'd done 15 years ago when Tanisha's first patient died despite everything she'd tried. Listen to me, Rita said firmly when the tears slowed. What he did is on him. The lying, the cheating, the using you and discarding you, that's his moral failure. But what you did, giving up on those women to support a man who didn't deserve it, that's on you. You have to own that. I know, Tanisha whispered, but here's what else is true. You're 39 years old. You're still a registered nurse, license still active. You're about to have money from selling that house. And those women who died, you can't save them. But there are hundreds more just like them still falling through cracks, still dying from preventable causes. Rita pulled back to look her in the eyes. It's not too late. You can still open that clinic. You can still be who you were supposed to be before you made yourself smaller to fit in his shadow. Tanisha wiped her face with shaking hands. I don't know if I remember how to be her. Then you'll learn again. 15 years is a long time to be someone you're not, but it's not forever. You get to decide who you are from this moment forward. Rita smiled sadly. That's the gift in this nightmare. He set you free, whether he meant to or not. Tanisha's phone buzzed. Christopher, meeting's finally done. Dinner with potential clients tonight. Wish you were here, baby. She showed Rita the message. Rita made a sound of disgust. What are you going to do? Tanisha thought about the 3 dead women in the article, about the clinic she'd abandoned, about 15 years of making herself invisible, about Sienna Park, 27 and pregnant, and probably believing the same lies Tanisha once believed. I'm going to take everything from him, she said quietly. The house, the money, his reputation, everything I helped him build, and then I'm going to use it to do what I should have done 15 years ago. Which is save lives he doesn't think matter, starting with my own. Rita squeezed her hand hard. That's my girl. That's the nurse I trained. Now go burn his world down. Tanisha stood up, dropped money on the table for both their drinks, walked out of that coffee shop feeling like someone who'd been underwater for 15 years and finally broken the surface, gasping, alive, ready to breathe again. Chapter 4. The bedroom video. The mansion echoed with emptiness on Tuesday afternoon. Tanisha stood in the bedroom she'd shared with Christopher for 12 years, surrounded by cardboard boxes James had brought up. 5 days since discovering the affair, 5 days since setting everything in motion. The realtor had brought 3 cash buyers through, all making obscene offers. Christopher still had no idea, still texted from New York about missing her. She'd stopped responding entirely yesterday. Now she was packing, removing every trace of herself from this room, when her hand found something wedged behind his nightstand. An iPad she'd never seen, silver and expensive. It wasn't password protected. He'd left it unlocked, probably forgot it existed in his rush to catch that flight. The screen showed his video library. The most recent video was dated 3 weeks ago. Some terrible instinct made her press play. The first image made bile rise in her throat. Their bedroom, this bedroom, the bed she'd slept in, afternoon sunlight through windows she'd chosen, and Christopher and Sienna, naked and entwined in sheets Tanisha had bought. She should have stopped watching, should have thrown the iPad across the room, but she couldn't stop torturing herself with the intimacy on screen. It wasn't just sex. This was intimacy, the kind she remembered having with Christopher a lifetime ago. He was whispering things to Sienna, tender things, his hand gentle on her pregnant belly. You're my miracle. I never thought I'd feel this alive. I never knew I could be this happy. Words he'd said to Tanisha once, words that had meant forever. Sienna's hand covered his on her belly, both staring down at where their baby grew, pure joy radiating from both their faces. She kicked, Sienna laughed with delight. Did you feel that? I felt it. My God, that's our daughter. Christopher kissed Sienna's belly, then her lips, then whispered, I love you so much. Both of you. My whole world. Tanisha's hand trembled so badly the iPad nearly fell. The video kept playing, showing them making love with tender passion that spoke of deep emotional connection, not a fair excitement. The memory hit like a physical blow. 8 years ago, her miscarriage, 12 weeks pregnant, their first, both so excited and terrified. She'd woken up bleeding, knowing immediately something was wrong. The emergency room. The ultrasound, showing no heartbeat where life should have been. Christopher had held her while she cried, stayed through the procedure, brought her home and took time off to care for her. But she remembered now how he'd slowly pulled away over the following weeks, how his touches became less frequent, how he'd tensed when she mentioned trying again, how he'd eventually said late one night, maybe it's not meant to be for us. Maybe we should focus on our careers. She'd blamed herself, thought her body had failed him. He'd wanted a baby, just not with her. She clicked to the next video, then the next. A whole library documenting their affair. Hotel rooms, her bed, his office with the door locked, all showing the same terrible truth. Christopher wasn't just cheating. He'd fallen in love, was building a whole new life, while Tanisha paid the bills and managed his schedule and made herself invisible. In one video from 2 months ago, she heard Sienna ask, "When are you going to tell her?" Christopher's response, casual and cruel, "Soon, I promise. I just need to get some financial things in order first. She gave up her career for me, so I owe her a decent settlement. But you're my future, baby. You and our daughter. Tanisha is just the past." Tanisha paused the video on Christopher's face, seeing a stranger who wore her husband's features. "Mrs. Bale?" James's voice from the doorway. His eyes went to the iPad, to her face, and he understood immediately. "What did you find?" She couldn't speak, just held the iPad out. James watched 30 seconds before turning it off, his face grey with fury. This was in the bedroom. Behind his nightstand, there are dozens of videos, all in our bed, in our home. While I was volunteering at the clinic on Tuesdays, he knew my schedule. He planned this. James set the iPad down carefully. When he looked at her, his eyes were wet. She'd never seen him close to crying. "I knew they were using this bedroom, but I didn't know he was recording it. Mrs. Bale, this is—" He stopped, unable to find adequate words. "I lost a baby 8 years ago," Tanisha said quietly, still staring at the frozen image of Christopher's joyful face. "Did you know that?" "No, ma'am. You've never mentioned it." "We were 12 weeks along. I was so happy. We both were, or so I thought. But after I miscarried, Christopher changed. Pulled away emotionally, stopped talking about trying again. I thought it was trauma, that losing the baby broke something in him. But watching these videos, seeing how happy he is about this baby with her, I finally understand." She looked up at James. "He didn't want a baby. He just didn't want one with me." "That man doesn't deserve you," James said fiercely. "He never did." Tanisha ejected the iPad from Christopher's cloud account, ensured all videos were saved locally, handed it to James. "Add this to the documentation. Everything, every video, every moment of him violating our marriage in the bed I sleep in." "Where he sleeps," James corrected gently. "You're not sleeping here anymore, are you?" She looked around the bedroom that had been her prison disguised as paradise. "No. I'll stay in the guest house until the sale closes. I can't be in this room again. Can you finish packing my things?" "Of course." She walked to the door, then paused. "James, do you think I'm a fool for not seeing this sooner?" He considered the question seriously. "I think you're a woman who loved someone and trusted them. That's not foolishness. That's courage. The fact that he betrayed that trust says everything about his character and nothing about yours. I gave up everything for him. My career, my clinic, my dreams. Women died because I made that choice. Then honor those women by becoming who you were supposed to be now," James said simply. "It's not too late, Mrs. Bale. You're 39, not 90. You have decades to do the work you abandoned, and you'll do it as someone who learned what happens when you make yourself smaller for someone else's comfort." Tanisha nodded, unable to speak past the emotion in her throat. Her phone rang. Christopher's face filled the screen. The photo from their 10th anniversary. She'd never changed. She declined the call. He called back immediately. She declined again. A text came through. "Baby, what's wrong? Why aren't you answering? Are you okay? I'm worried. Call me back, please." The audacity of him demanding her emotional labor while fucking another woman in their bed and recording it like a trophy, she typed back with steady fingers. "I'm fine, just busy. Talk later." Then she blocked his number. James watched her do it with something like pride. "What now, Mrs. Bale?" Tanisha looked at the bedroom one last time, at the bed where her marriage had died in high-definition video, and felt something fundamental shift inside her chest. The grief was still there, would probably always be there. But underneath it, growing stronger by the hour, was something else entirely. Rage. Pure, cold, focused rage. Now. She turned to James with a smile that was all teeth and no warmth. Now I stop being sad and start being strategic. Christopher thinks I'm weak because I loved him. He's about to learn exactly how strong you have to be to love someone who doesn't deserve it, and exactly how dangerous that strength becomes when you finally stop wasting it on them. Chapter 5. The woman in the hospital. The emergency room at County General smelled like antiseptic and desperation. Tanisha stood in the doorway Wednesday evening, wearing scrubs she'd kept in the back of her closet like artifacts from another life. It had been 15 years since she'd worked a shift here, but her hands remembered the rhythm, the controlled chaos that had once made her feel alive and necessary. Rita had called that morning. "We're short-staffed tonight, critically short. I know you haven't worked in years, but your license is still active, and I need someone I can trust. Just one shift. Can you help?" Tanisha had said yes before thinking it through. Now she was here, stepping back into the life she'd abandoned, wondering if she'd remember how to be that person. "Tanisha," Rita appeared from behind the nurse's station, pulling her into a quick hug. "Thank you for coming. I'll partner you with someone experienced, ease you back in. You remember the basics?" "I think so." "Good, because we've got a mess tonight. Full moon brings out the chaos." Rita handed her a tablet with patient assignments. "Start with room 7. Young woman, 6 months pregnant, came in reporting abdominal pain. Might be nothing, might be preeclampsia. I need you to do a full assessment." Tanisha walked to room 7, her nursing instincts kicking in automatically. Knocked once and entered. The woman on the bed was young, maybe 24, with fear written across her face, but it was the bruises on her arms that made Tanisha stop. Finger-shaped bruises. Recent. "Hi, I'm Tanisha. I'll be your nurse tonight. What's your name?" "Aaliyah," the woman whispered, eyes darting to the door like she expected someone to burst through. Tanisha closed the door gently, pulled up a chair. "Tell me what brought you in tonight." "My stomach hurts. And my head. And I've been seeing spots." Aaliyah's hand rested protectively on her belly. "I'm scared something's wrong with my baby." Tanisha began the assessment, checking blood pressure. It was dangerously high. "How long have you had the headaches?" "A week, maybe more. But I couldn't come in before. He doesn't like me going places without him." "He?" Tanisha asked gently, already knowing the answer. Aaliyah looked away. "My boyfriend, the baby's father. He gets angry sometimes. Says I embarrass him now that he's doing better, making more money. Says I'm not good enough for where he's going." The words hit Tanisha like a punch to the stomach. She saw herself in this young woman. Saw the future Sienna Park might have if she stayed with Christopher long enough. "Those bruises on your arms," Tanisha said quietly. "Did he do that?" Aaliyah started crying. "It's my fault. I burned dinner last night. He's under so much stress with his new job, and I should have been more careful." "Stop!" Tanisha took Aaliyah's hand firmly. "Listen to me. This is not your fault. Nothing you could do would justify him hurting you. Nothing. But I have nowhere to go. I gave up my job when I got pregnant because he said he'd take care of us. I gave up my apartment, my friends. My family doesn't talk to me anymore because of him. I have nothing without him." Tanisha felt like she was looking in a mirror that showed the past and future simultaneously. This woman had given up everything, just like Tanisha had, was being told she wasn't good enough, just like Christopher's family had told him about Tanisha, was trapped in a cycle that would only get worse. "How far along are you?" 26 weeks. The same as Sienna. The realization made Tanisha's chest tight. A memory surfaced with painful clarity. 10 years ago, Christopher's first big client dinner. She'd been so nervous, wanting to make a good impression. She'd said something about enjoying historical architecture, and one of the clients had made a subtle dig about amateur perspectives. Christopher had laughed along with them. Later in the car, he'd said, "Baby, maybe it's better if you don't come to these things. You don't really understand the technical side, and I need to maintain credibility." She'd felt small, inadequate, had started declining invitations to his events, slowly erasing herself from his professional life. "Aaliyah," Tanisha said, making a decision, "your blood pressure is dangerously high. You're showing signs of preeclampsia. I need to admit you overnight for monitoring. I can't stay. He'll be angry that I'm gone. He doesn't get a vote in your medical care." Tanisha's voice was firm. "Your life and your baby's life are at risk. You're staying." She stepped out, found Rita. "The woman in room 7 needs admission for preeclampsia, but she's also being abused. Can you contact social services? She needs help getting out." Rita nodded grimly. "I'll make the calls." Tanisha went back to Aaliyah's room. The young woman was crying quietly, one hand on her belly. "I know you're scared," Tanisha said, sitting beside the bed. "I know it feels like you have nothing without him. But I need you to listen to me. You are 24 years old. You have a whole life ahead of you. This man who hurts you and makes you feel small, he doesn't get to be your whole world. You deserve better." "You don't understand," Aaliyah whispered. "I love him. And sometimes he's so good to me. He just gets stressed." "I understand more than you know." Tanisha pulled her chair closer. "I'm 39 years old. I've been married for 15 years to a man I thought loved me. I gave up my career for him, my dreams, everything I wanted to be. I made myself smaller and smaller until I almost disappeared. And you know what he did? He replaced me with someone younger, someone who fits better into the life I helped him build. I just found out a few days ago that she's pregnant, same as you. 26 weeks. Aaliyah stared at her, tears streaming down her face. "So believe me when I tell you that loving someone who hurts you doesn't make you noble. It makes you a victim, and you deserve better than that. Your baby deserves better than that." "What did you do?" Aaliyah asked. "When you found out?" "I'm burning his world down," Tanisha said simply, "taking everything I helped him build and using it to become who I was supposed to be before I met him. It's terrifying and painful, and some days I can barely breathe. But for the first time in 15 years, I'm choosing myself. And you need to choose yourself too." A knock on the door. A social worker entered, introduced herself to Aaliyah, began explaining options, shelters, legal aid, protection orders. Tanisha slipped out, let the professionals do their work. She found Rita at the nurse's station. "That girl is you, isn't she?" Rita said quietly. 24-year-old version of you." "Yeah, except I didn't have anyone to tell me the truth. I had to learn it 15 years too late." "You told her the truth tonight. Maybe you saved 2 lives instead of 1. Tanisha's eyes burned with unshed tears. "I'm going to open that clinic, Rita. I'm going to use the money from selling the house and open the clinic that should have existed 15 years ago, and I'm going to make sure women like Aaliyah have somewhere to go, somewhere safe." "When do you want to start?" "As soon as the house sells. Next week, maybe. I can't waste any more time. I've already wasted 15 years. Rita squeezed her shoulder. "That's my girl. Now finish your shift. You've got 6 more patients waiting." Tanisha worked through the night, her body remembering skills her mind had forgotten. Saved a man having a heart attack, stitched up a kid who'd fallen off his skateboard, held the hand of an elderly woman dying alone because her family didn't care enough to visit. And with each patient, she remembered who she'd been before Christopher. The nurse who'd worked double shifts and loved it. The woman who'd believed she could change the world. The fighter who'd never given up on people, even when they'd given up on themselves. Sunrise was breaking when her shift ended. She walked to her car, exhausted and exhilarated, and more herself than she'd felt in 15 years. Her phone had 17 missed calls from Christopher. She deleted the notifications without listening to the voicemails. She drove home, showered, fell into bed in the guest house, slept dreamlessly for 6 hours. When she woke, There was a text from James. House has an offer. Full asking price, cash, close in 5 days. Should I accept? Tanisha typed back immediately. Yes, accept it. Then she called Rita. I need to see that space on Vermont Avenue, the one where the clinic was supposed to be. Is it still available? I'll make calls. Tanisha hung up and looked at herself in the mirror. She looked tired, older, but her eyes were clear, focused. Christopher had taken 15 years from her, had stolen her dreams and used her love as a weapon and thrown her away when she was no longer convenient. But he'd made a mistake. He'd assumed she'd stay broken, would accept whatever settlement he offered and disappear quietly. He didn't know she'd spent the night saving lives. Didn't know she'd remembered what it felt like to matter. Didn't know she'd found her purpose again. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. And Tanisha was done fighting fair. Chapter 6. The funeral where truth exploded. Christopher's father died on a Thursday. Tanisha got the call from Christopher's sister while she was meeting with contractors about the clinic space. Father had a massive heart attack this morning. He's gone. The funeral is Saturday in Greenwich. The family expects you'll attend. Expects, not hopes, not asks. Expects. Tanisha had every reason to say no. They'd never accepted her, had actively celebrated her replacement. But some perverse instinct made her say yes. She wanted to see them, wanted to look Christopher in the eye, wanted him to see she wasn't broken. She flew to Connecticut Friday night, checked into a hotel rather than staying at the family estate. The funeral was at 10 Saturday morning. She dressed in black, simple and elegant, and drove to the church that had been in the Bale family for 5 generations. Christopher was standing outside greeting mourners when she arrived. He looked shocked to see her. She'd ignored his calls for 8 days straight. He probably thought she'd given up. Tanisha, he said, moving toward her. Baby, I'm so glad you came. We need to talk. I'm here to pay respects to your father, she said coolly, not to talk to you. She walked past him into the church. The sanctuary was packed. Old money, new money, politicians, judges, people who'd never acknowledged Tanisha's existence in 15 years of marriage. She sat in the back. Christopher kept turning around during the service, staring at her like he was seeing a ghost. At the reception afterward, held at the Bale estate, Tanisha stood alone near the windows with a glass of wine she wasn't drinking. People gave her a wide berth, the wife who was about to be replaced. No one wanted to be associated with her social death. Then Christopher's mother cornered her, Eleanor Bale, 70 years old, black dress and pearls, and eyes like chips of ice. Tanisha, I'm surprised you had the audacity to come, given the circumstances. What circumstances would those be, Eleanor? Don't play stupid. You know Christopher has moved on. The decent thing would be to sign whatever papers his lawyer sends and disappear quietly. Don't embarrass yourself by clinging to something that's over. Something inside, Tanisha snapped. Moved on, she repeated softly. Is that what you're calling it? Interesting euphemism for cheating on your wife with a woman young enough to be your daughter while she's 6 months pregnant with your grandchild. Several people nearby stopped talking, turning to listen. Eleanor's face went white. Lower your voice. This is neither the time nor place. You're absolutely right. The time was 3 months ago when you left that voicemail telling Christopher I wasn't good enough for him anymore. When you welcomed his mistress into your home for Thanksgiving while I was planning our anniversary dinner. The place was anywhere private, where you could have had the decency to tell me to my face that you thought I was disposable. More people were listening now. Christopher was pushing through the crowd, panic on his face. Tanisha, Eleanor hissed, don't you dare make a scene at my husband's funeral. A scene? Tanisha's voice was still quiet, but it carried. I haven't even started. You want to hear about scenes? Let me tell you about the scene I walked into in my own bedroom. Videos of your son fucking his pregnant mistress in the bed I sleep in. Videos he recorded like trophies while I was out volunteering at a free clinic, trying to do some good in the world. The room had gone completely silent. Or how about the scene where I found his second phone with voicemails from all of you, his whole family celebrating my replacement, planning baby showers for his bastard child, discussing how to dispose of me with minimum inconvenience. Christopher reached them. "Tanisha, please, not here." She turned on him with 15 years of rage in her eyes. "Not here? Where then, Christopher? Should I wait until you get around to telling me yourself, or were you just going to serve me with divorce papers after the baby was born?" "I was going to tell you." "When? After another anniversary you forgot? After another year of making me feel crazy for suspecting what everyone else already knew? Tell me, when you were inside her, inside Sienna, in our bed, did you think about me at all, or was I already erased in your mind?" Christopher's face was red. Some of it was shame, but mostly it was anger at being embarrassed in front of his people. "You're being hysterical." "I'm being honest. There's a difference. You've just never seen me honest before, because I spent 15 years making myself small enough to fit in your life, quiet enough not to embarrass you, invisible enough not to remind your family that I came from nothing." She turned to address the room. All these people who'd looked through her for years were staring now. "I was a nurse when I met him. A good one. I had dreams. I was opening a community clinic in South LA to provide free healthcare for women who couldn't afford it. I had funding. I had a location. I had everything in place." She looked back at Christopher. "Then I met you, and you needed money for your first big commission, so I gave you $85,000, every penny I'd raised for that clinic. You promised to pay me back in 6 months." "Tanisha," he started. "That was 15 years ago. The clinic never opened. 3 women died last year in that neighborhood from preventable complications during pregnancy. Complications my clinic was specifically designed to catch. So when you do the math on what our marriage cost, Christopher, don't just count money, count lives." The room was so quiet you could hear the antique clock ticking in the corner. Eleanor found her voice. "How dare you come into my home on the day of my husband's funeral? Your husband who called me an unfortunate phase in your son's life, who told Christopher I was acceptable when he was nobody but embarrassing now that he was somebody. I dare because I have nothing left to lose. You people already took everything." "We gave you everything," Eleanor said. "This life, this house, this family." "I didn't want this family," Tanisha said, her voice finally rising. "I wanted my husband. The man I married in a courthouse because we were too broke for a church. The man who slow danced with me in a studio apartment and promised me every year would get better. But you know what? He was right. Every year did get better. For him, while I disappeared." She looked around the room at all these wealthy, powerful people who'd never once made her feel welcome. "I came here today to pay respects to a man who never respected me. But also to tell all of you something. I'm not disappearing. I'm not signing anything quietly. I'm not making this easy." She turned back to Christopher. "I sold the house, closed yesterday, got full asking price. The money's already in my account, and before you try to freeze it, remember the house was in both our names. California law says I had every right." Christopher's face went from red to white. "You did what?" "Sold our house. Your awards are in boxes being shipped to your office. Your clothes are in storage. Everything you own that was in that house is gone, and I'm taking half of everything else too. The firm you built with my money, the reputation you constructed using my support, all of it. I'm going to make sure the world knows exactly who you really are." "You vindictive—" "Honest," she corrected. "I'm being honest, something you've never been with me." She set down her wine glass. "Enjoy your funeral. Enjoy your pregnant girlfriend. Enjoy the life you built on my sacrifice, but know that I'm not going away. I'm going to haunt every step you take from here forward." She walked toward the door. The crowd parted like she was radioactive. At the door, she turned back one last time. "Oh, and Christopher, I'm opening that clinic, the one I closed for you. I'm using my half of our assets to open it, and I'm naming it after the 3 women who died because I chose you over them. So every time you drive past it, every time you see a news story about it, you'll remember what you really cost. Not money, lives." She walked out into cold Connecticut afternoon, got in her rental car, and drove away from the Bale family forever. Her hands were shaking so hard she had to pull over twice. But she'd done it. She'd told the truth in front of everyone, had stopped protecting him, had stopped making herself small. Her phone rang. James. Mrs. Bale, I just got a call from Mr. Bale's attorney. He's trying to freeze your accounts and file an emergency injunction about the house sale. Can he? Not likely. The house was legally yours to sell, and the money is in your personal account now, transferred before he even knew. He'd have to prove fraud, which he can't. You acted within your legal rights. Good. There's something else. Rita called. The landlord for the Vermont Avenue space agreed to your offer. You can sign the lease Monday. Tanisha closed her eyes, leaning her head back against the seat. Everything was falling apart and coming together simultaneously. Tell Rita yes. Tell her I'll be there Monday. And James? Yes, ma'am? Thank you. For everything. She hung up, sat in the car for a long time, and finally let herself cry. Not for Christopher, not for the marriage, but for the 15 years she'd lost, for the woman she could have been, for the lives she might have saved if she'd been braver sooner. When the tears stopped, she looked at herself in the rearview mirror, eyes red but clear, face blotchy but determined. She started the car and drove to the airport. She was done with Connecticut, done with the Bales, done with being anyone's disposable wife. Monday, she'd sign a lease on a clinic, start building something real, something that mattered. Christopher had given her 15 years of lies. She was about to give him a lifetime of consequences. Chapter 7. The night she almost went back. It was 2 in the morning when her phone rang. Tanisha woke from restless sleep in her hotel room, disoriented. She'd flown back from Connecticut that afternoon, exhausted from the confrontation at the funeral. Checked into a hotel because she couldn't face the empty guest house yet. Christopher's name on the screen. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Tanisha. His voice was strange. Wrong. I'm at Cedars-Sinai. I was in a car accident. I'm okay, but I'm asking for you. Can you come? She should have said no. Should have hung up. Should have let him handle his emergency alone the way he'd left her to handle hers for years. Instead, she found herself getting dressed, driving through empty Los Angeles streets to the hospital. She found him in the emergency room, curtain area 12. His left arm was in a temporary splint, cuts across his face, blood on his shirt, but alive, conscious, staring at the ceiling with an expression she'd never seen before. Christopher. He turned his head, saw her, and something in his face crumbled. You came. I didn't think you'd come. What happened? I was driving back from the airport, couldn't stop thinking about the funeral, about what you said, about everything. I wasn't paying attention, ran a red light. Someone hit me. My fault. All my fault. A nurse came in, checked his vitals, told Tanisha he'd be fine. Broken arm, possible concussion, needed observation overnight. Then left them alone. I'm so sorry, Christopher said, and he started crying. Real tears, not manipulation, actual breaking down crying. God, Tanisha, I'm so sorry for everything. I ruined everything. I ruined us. I ruined you. She stood there, watching him cry, feeling nothing. I love you, he said desperately. I never stopped loving you. I know you don't believe that, but it's true. Sienna was a mistake, a stupid, terrible mistake. I can fix this. I'll leave her. We can start over. We can try for a baby together. I know that's what you always wanted. Stop. Please, Tanisha. Please don't give up on us. On 15 years. You're my wife. You're the only woman I've ever truly loved. Stop, she said again, louder this time. He fell silent, staring at her with desperate eyes. For a moment she almost believed him, almost reached out, almost let herself forget everything and just comfort him like she'd done 1,000 times before. Then the curtain moved aside and a nurse entered. Mr. Bale, your girlfriend called. She's on her way from New York. She's very worried about the baby. The nurse stopped, seeing Tanisha. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. It's fine, Tanisha said quietly. Then looked at Christopher. You called her first. His face told her everything. Even now, even in an emergency, even when you're begging me to come back, you called her first. Tanisha, that's not... What's not what? Not what it looks like? Not important? Not worth talking about? She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Do you even hear yourself? A memory surfaced with brutal clarity. 5 years ago, their 10th anniversary. He'd surprised her with a trip to Santorini. They'd renewed their vows on a beach at sunset, just the two of them and a local officiant. He'd looked into her eyes and said, "You're the only woman I'll ever love." 10 years down, forever to go. That night, they'd made love in their hotel room, and she'd felt so connected to him, so certain they'd make it, that they were different from couples who fell apart. She'd been so stupid. "You know what the saddest part is," she said now, looking at him lying there broken and crying. "I don't think you even know you're lying. I think you actually believe that you love me, that this was all some mistake you can fix. But Christopher, you don't love me. You love the idea of me, the version of me that made you feel good about yourself, the nurse who believed in you, the wife who made you look stable and grounded. But the real me, the woman with dreams and opinions and needs, you never loved her. You just used her until you found someone better." "That's not true." "It is true. And the proof is that you called Sienna first. Even now, when you're supposedly having this grand realization about us, she's the one you needed first, because she's the one you actually want." The nurse had quietly retreated, leaving them alone again. "I made a mistake," Christopher said. "People make mistakes. Marriages survive infidelity all the time. This wasn't a mistake. Mistakes are accidental. You didn't accidentally fall into her bed. You didn't accidentally get her pregnant. You didn't accidentally tell your entire family about her while keeping me in the dark. You made choices. Hundreds of deliberate choices. And every single one of them was about protecting yourself and getting what you wanted, regardless of what it did to me." She picked up her purse. "I hope you heal. I really do. But not with me. Never with me again." "Tanisha, please. Do you want to know what I realized tonight? Driving here, thinking about whether to come. I realized that I haven't loved you in years. I loved who you used to be, or who I thought you were, but that person never really existed, did he? You were always this person. I just refused to see it because seeing it would have meant admitting I'd wasted my life." "Don't say that." "Why not?" "It's true. I wasted 15 years on you. Gave up my career, my dreams, my identity, and for what? So you could replace me with a younger model the second you were successful enough to afford it?" Christopher was crying harder now, but Tanisha felt nothing. No satisfaction in his pain, no urge to comfort him, just a vast, empty clarity. "I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to really hear it," she said. "What you did to me was cruel, unforgivable. But it was also the best thing that could have happened, because it woke me up, made me remember who I was before I met you, and I'm going back to being that person. The nurse who saves lives, the woman who builds clinics for people who need them, the fighter who doesn't make herself small for anyone." She walked to the curtain, then paused. "Oh, and you should know. Your assets are frozen pending the divorce. My attorney filed papers yesterday. You're going to fight this, I know. Your family will throw money at lawyers, but I have something they don't." "What's that?" "The truth. And documentation of every lie you told, every dollar you spent on her, every moment you violated our marriage vows. James gave me everything. Videos, photos, receipts, all of it. So go ahead and fight. I'll win." She started to leave for real this time. "Tanisha," his voice was broken, "I do love you. I know you don't believe it, but I do." She looked back at him one last time, saw the man she'd given 15 years to, the man who'd taken everything and given nothing back, the man who'd betrayed her in every way possible and still expected her to save him. "The tragedy isn't that you don't love me, Christopher. It's that you don't even know what love means. You think it's about feelings, about wanting someone. But love is about actions, about showing up, about choosing someone every single day, and you stopped choosing me a long time ago. She walked out while he was still begging her to stay. In the parking lot, she sat in her car and shook, not from grief. From the effort of walking away from 15 years of habit, from muscle memory that said when he hurt, she should comfort. When he needed, she should provide. But she'd walked away, had chosen herself for once. Her phone buzzed, a text from Rita. Lease is signed. Clinic is officially yours. When do you want to start renovations? Tanisha looked up at the hospital where Christopher was probably still crying, probably calling Sienna for comfort now that Tanisha was gone. She typed back, "Tomorrow. We start tomorrow." Then she drove away from Cedars Sinai, away from Christopher, away from the ghost of who she used to be, and for the first time in 15 years, she felt free. Chapter 8. The Sisters' Betrayal. The text came 3 days later. "We need to talk. It's important. Can you meet me?" Monique, Tanisha's younger sister, the only family she had left since their parents passed. They hadn't spoken in 2 weeks, since before the funeral. Tanisha had been avoiding her calls, knowing Monique would want her to forgive Christopher, to save the marriage, to think about the family reputation. But Monique was persistent, and Tanisha was curious what was important enough for this urgency. They met at a restaurant in Culver City, neutral territory. Monique was already seated when Tanisha arrived, looking nervous in a way that immediately put Tanisha on guard. "You look good," Monique said as Tanisha sat down. "Different, stronger or something." "Thanks." They ordered drinks, made small talk. Tanisha waited for the real conversation to start. Finally, Monique took a breath. "I need to talk to you about Christopher." "No. Just hear me out." "Monique, I don't want to hear about how marriage is hard or how men make mistakes or how I should think about my vows. I've heard it all before. I'm done." "That's not what I was going to say." Monique looked down at her drink. "I was going to say that you need to stop this war you're waging against him. It's getting ugly. It's embarrassing. People are talking." Tanisha stared at her sister. "People are talking. That's what you're concerned about. Not what he did to me, but what people are saying. It's not just that. Look, I know Christopher hurt you. I know he cheated and lied and all of it was terrible, but dragging it out publicly, making scenes at funerals, trying to destroy his reputation, that's not who you are, Tani. That's not how you were raised." "How I was raised." Tanisha's voice was dangerously quiet. "I was raised by a mother who cleaned houses for rich white families and told me to be grateful for whatever crumbs I got. I was raised by a father who worked 60-hour weeks driving a bus and never complained. I was raised to make myself small and acceptable and grateful. And you know what that got me? 15 years with a man who thought I was disposable. That's not fair. What's not fair is you sitting here telling me to be quiet about my own destruction. What's not fair is you caring more about what people think than about what your sister survived." Monique looked uncomfortable. "There's something else." And there it was, the real reason for this meeting. "Christopher came to see me," Monique said. Tanisha went very still. "When?" "Last week, after the funeral. He was upset about the house, about the accounts. He asked me to talk to you, to help him fix things." "And?" Monique wouldn't meet her eyes. "He offered me money to convince you to settle quietly, $50,000. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. "And did you take it?" Silence. "Monique, did you take the money?" "I have bills," Monique said defensively. "The car was breaking down and rent was due, and I didn't think—" He made it sound like it was for your own good, like you were having some kind of breakdown and needed help seeing clearly. "Get out. Tani, please. Get out of this restaurant. Get out of my life. Get the fuck away from me before I do something I'll regret." "You're overreacting." "I'm overreacting." Tanisha's voice was loud enough now that other diners were staring. "My husband of 15 years cheated on me, got another woman pregnant, and is trying to steal everything I helped build. And my own sister took his money to convince me to shut up about it. But I'm overreacting. I was trying to help. You were trying to help yourself. Don't pretend this was about me. You saw an opportunity to make money and you took it, just like he did with my clinic money, just like everyone does when they think they can use me. Monique stood up, grabbing her purse. Fine, be bitter, be angry, destroy your marriage and your life because you can't forgive a mistake. But don't call me when you're alone and miserable and realize what you threw away. Threw away? Tanisha stood too, facing her sister across the table. He threw me away. He replaced me, used me up and discarded me. And you helped him do it. So yeah, I'm angry. But I'm not the one who should be ashamed here. I'm your sister. You were my sister. Past tense. The woman who would take money from the man who destroyed me to help him finish the job. That's not family. That's just another person who saw me as a means to an end. Monique's face flushed. You always thought you were better than me, better than all of us. Going to nursing school, marrying rich, living in that big house. You judge Mama for cleaning houses, judge Daddy for driving a bus. You were embarrassed by where you came from. That's not true. It is true. You couldn't wait to get away from us to be someone better. And now that it's all falling apart, now that you're back to being nobody, you want sympathy. You want me to pretend you're a victim. You made your choices, Tani. You chose him over us. So don't be surprised when we choose ourselves over you. The words hit harder than Monique probably intended, because there was truth in them. Tanisha had pulled away from her family after marrying Christopher, not because she was embarrassed, but because Christopher had made it clear they didn't fit in his world. And instead of fighting for them, she'd let them go. You're right, Tanisha said quietly. I did pull away. I made my marriage my whole world and let everything else fall away. But you know what the difference is between us? I'm trying to fix that mistake. I'm trying to become someone who matters again, who helps people, who stands for something. What are you doing? Taking money to help a man finish destroying the sister you're supposed to love. She threw cash on the table for her drink. Keep Christopher's 50,000. Buy yourself a new car. I hope every time you drive it you remember what it cost. Tani, wait! But Tanisha was already walking out. She made it to her car before the tears came. She sat in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel, crying harder than she had since this all started. Not because of Christopher anymore, because of this, her own sister choosing money over her, her own blood deciding Tanisha wasn't worth standing by. She remembered their mother's funeral 3 years ago. Monique had held Tanisha while she cried, told her they'd always have each other, that sisters were forever. Christopher had been there too, being supportive and comforting, and Tanisha had felt so grateful for her family. All lies, all performance. The second things got hard. Everyone scattered. Her phone rang. She almost didn't answer. Then saw it was Rita. Hey, Tanisha said, her voice thick with tears. What's wrong? My sister took money from Christopher to convince me to settle quietly. $50,000. She took it. Rita was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry, baby girl. I don't have anyone left. My husband betrayed me. His family hates me. My own sister chose money over me. I'm completely alone. No, you're not. Rita, you're not alone. You have me. You have the clinic we're building. You have the women you're going to save. And most importantly, you have yourself. For the first time in 15 years, you have yourself back. That's not nothing. Tanisha closed her eyes, letting Rita's words sink in. I'm so tired of fighting. I know, but you're almost through it. The divorce will finalize, the clinic will open, and you'll build a life that's actually yours, not borrowed from someone else. It's going to be hard, it's going to hurt, but you'll make it. What if I'm not strong enough? You delivered a baby in the back of an ambulance during a thunderstorm when you were a student nurse. You worked a 48-hour shift when we had that flu outbreak. You held a woman's hand while she died because her family wouldn't come. You are the strongest person I know. This doesn't break you. It just burns away everything that wasn't really you. Tanisha sat with that for a moment. I went to my father's grave yesterday. First time since the funeral. What did you tell him? That I'm sorry I forgot who I was, that I'm trying to remember, that I hope he'd be proud of who I'm becoming. He would be, Rita said firmly. Your daddy would be so damn proud of you right now, fighting back, building something that matters, not letting them make you small. That's his daughter. They talked for a few more minutes. When Tanisha hung up, she felt steadier, still hurt, still angry, but not alone, not completely. She drove to her father's grave in Forest Lawn, sat on the grass beside his headstone, told him about everything. The betrayal, the divorce, the sister who'd chosen wrong, the clinic she was building. I know I disappointed you, she whispered. Gave up nursing, gave up my dreams, made myself into someone you wouldn't recognize. But I'm fixing it, Daddy. I'm becoming her again. The fighter you raised, the woman who doesn't quit. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. She sat there until dark, talking to her father, making promises to his memory. When she finally left, she felt different, lighter, like she'd shed another layer of who she'd pretended to be. Monique had made her choice. Christopher had made his. Everyone had shown Tanisha who they really were. Now it was her turn to show them who she really was. And they were going to hate what they saw. Chapter 9. The Courtroom. Where she spoke, the divorce hearing was scheduled for a Friday in late May. Tanisha had spent the previous month preparing, working with her attorney, organizing documentation, building her case, but more importantly, building herself. The clinic was under renovation. She'd enrolled in a refresher nursing course to update her skills. She'd started seeing a therapist to process 15 years of making herself disappear. She was becoming someone new, or maybe just someone old. The version of herself she'd been before Christopher. The courthouse was in downtown Los Angeles, imposing and cold. Christopher's attorney was a shark in a $1,000 suit, known for destroying wives in divorce proceedings. Christopher had spared no expense. Tanisha's attorney was a woman named Justice O'Connor, mid-50s, with a reputation for taking on powerful men and making them bleed. She'd taken Tanisha's case for half her normal fee after hearing the story. He's going to try to paint you as vindictive, Justice had warned, as a woman scorned who's trying to punish him. We need to stay calm, stay factual, and let the evidence speak. But when Tanisha walked into that courtroom and saw Christopher sitting at the defense table, looking confident and smug, flanked by 3 attorneys who cost more per hour than she used to make in a week, something inside her shifted. This was it, the moment where she either disappeared or demanded to be seen. The judge was a black woman in her 60s named Honor Kessler. She had a reputation for not tolerating nonsense and for favoring thorough documentation. Christopher's lead attorney, a man named Bradford Hunt, went first. He painted Christopher as a successful architect who'd been generous to Tanisha throughout their marriage, claimed she'd contributed little to his success, argued that her selling the house was vindictive and possibly fraudulent, suggested she was entitled to minimal settlement. My client made an error in judgment, Bradford said smoothly. He had an affair. He's not proud of it. But Mrs. Bale's response has been disproportionate and destructive. She sold their marital home without consultation. She's attempting to damage his professional reputation. She's demanding half of a business she played no role in building. This is clearly a vindictive woman trying to punish a man for a mistake. Tanisha watched Christopher while Bradford spoke. He didn't look at her once, just sat there looking like the victim, like this was all happening to him instead of because of him. Then it was Justice O'Connor's turn. She methodically presented evidence. Emails showing Christopher's affair had lasted 9 months. Voicemails from his family discussing how to replace Tanisha. Bank records showing he'd spent over $200,000 on Sienna from their joint accounts. Videos from the flash drive James had provided showing Christopher and Sienna in the marital bed, in hotels, in his office. The judge watched one of the videos, her face impassive. When it ended, she looked at Christopher with something that might have been disgust. "Counselor," Judge Kessler said to Bradford, Your client recorded sexual encounters with his mistress in the marital home. This is your definition of an error in judgment, Bradford fumbled. Your Honor, while my client's behavior was inappropriate is forgetting an anniversary. This is calculated betrayal. This is a man who documented his infidelity like it was something to be proud of. Christopher's face went red. He leaned over to whisper something to Bradford, but the judge's eyes were sharp. Mr. Bale, sit back and be quiet. Then Justice said something unexpected. Your Honor, Mrs. Bale would like to make a statement. The judge looked surprised. This isn't a criminal trial, Counselor. Victim impact statements aren't standard in divorce proceedings. Nevertheless, my client has the right to be heard. She's been silent for 15 years. I think the court can give her 5 minutes. Judge Kessler considered, then nodded. 5 minutes, Mrs. Bale. Tanisha stood. She'd prepared a speech with Justice, practiced it dozens of times, refined every word. But standing there looking at Christopher, looking at the judge who would decide her future, the prepared words disappeared like smoke. Your Honor, I'm not here to play the victim. I made choices too, bad ones. I gave up my nursing career to support my husband. I gave him $85,000 that was meant to open a free clinic in South LA. I made myself smaller and smaller until I almost disappeared. Those were my choices. I own them. She took a breath, steadied herself. But I want the court to know what those choices cost, not just me. 3 women died last year in the neighborhood where my clinic was supposed to be. Destiny Williams, Diamond Ross, Jasmine Porter. They died from preventable complications during pregnancy. Complications my clinic was specifically designed to catch. They were 23, 19, and 31 years old. They had families. They had futures. And they're gone because I chose to support a man who was already planning to replace me. Christopher shifted uncomfortably in his seat. She saw him mouth something to his attorney. I gave up my dream to support his. I gave up my identity to fit into his life. I gave up my voice because he preferred a wife who didn't talk back, who didn't challenge him, who made him look good at dinner parties by staying quiet. Her voice grew stronger. And when his family told him I wasn't good enough anymore, when they welcomed his mistress into their home for Thanksgiving while I was planning our anniversary dinner, when they planned a future that erased me like I'd never existed, I had no one, because I'd given up everyone and everything for him. Her voice cracked slightly, but she pushed through. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm asking for what I'm legally entitled to. Half of the assets I helped build. Half of the firm I supported with my own money when he was nobody, when his own family had abandoned him for dating me. Half of the life we built together, even if he's already building a new one with someone else. She looked directly at Christopher for the first time since entering the courtroom. He looked away immediately, couldn't meet her eyes. You told your family I was the past, that Sienna was your future. You told them I didn't understand your work, that I was an embarrassment, that I didn't fit anymore. Fine, but the past has a cost, and you're going to pay it. She turned back to the judge. I don't want revenge, Your Honor. I want recognition. I want the court to acknowledge that I existed, that I mattered, that my 15 years of sacrifice were real and valuable, even if my husband doesn't think so anymore. I want those 3 dead women to count for something. I want my pain to mean something. She sat down. The courtroom was completely silent. Several people in the gallery were crying. Judge Kessler looked at Christopher. Mr. Bale, do you have anything to say? Christopher stood, cleared his throat. Your Honor, I made mistakes. I'm not denying that. But my wife is painting herself as this innocent victim and I'm some monster. The truth is more complicated. She stopped trying in our marriage years ago, stopped caring about my work, stopped supporting my ambitions. We grew apart. These things happen in marriages. You grew apart, Judge Kessler repeated flatly. Is that why you recorded yourself having sex with your pregnant mistress in the marital bed? Because you'd grown apart? Christopher's face went from red to purple. That's not... it wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Mr. Bale? Explain to me how spending $200,000 of your wife's money on your mistress is growing apart. Explain how getting another woman pregnant while married is growing apart. Explain how your entire family conspiring to replace your wife is growing apart. Your Honor, Bradford tried to interject. Sit down, Mr. Bale. Counselor, sit down. I've heard enough. The judge looked at her notes for a long moment. The silence in the courtroom was oppressive. Tanisha could hear her own heartbeat. Then Judge Kessler looked up. I've been doing this for 23 years. I've seen a lot of ugly divorces, a lot of betrayal, a lot of cruelty. But this case is particularly disturbing because of the level of calculation involved. This wasn't a drunken mistake at a conference. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was a deliberate, sustained deception involving your entire family conspiring to replace your wife while she remained loyal and devoted. She looked at Tanisha with something like respect in her eyes. Mrs. Bale, the house sale was legal. It was in both names. You had the right to sell it. The money is yours. As for the rest, I'm granting you 55% of all marital assets, including 55% ownership in the architecture firm. Christopher's attorney started to object. Judge Kessler held up her hand sharply. This includes all accounts, all properties, all investments, and all business interests. Additionally, Mr. Bale will pay Mrs. Bale's legal fees in full. This court finds that his conduct was egregious enough to warrant punitive measures beyond standard division of assets. Bradford was on his feet. Your Honor, that's excessive and unprecedented. Your client spent $200,000 from joint accounts on his affair. He recorded intimate encounters without his wife's knowledge or consent. He and his family conspired to defraud her of her rightful place in the marriage. He allowed her to give up her career while planning to replace her. I'm being generous, Counselor. In my opinion, he should pay far more. Sit down. Tanisha felt justice squeeze her hand under the table so hard it hurt. Furthermore, the judge continued, her voice cold as ice, I'm issuing a restraining order. Mr. Bale is not to contact Mrs. Bale except through attorneys. He is not to approach her, not to come within 100 yards of her residence or place of business, not to interfere with her business ventures, not to damage her reputation in any way through public statements or social media. If he violates this order, he will be held in contempt and face immediate penalties, including possible jail time. She looked at Tanisha one more time, and her expression softened. Mrs. Bale, you asked to be seen, to be recognized. This court sees you. This court recognizes your contribution. This court acknowledges the lives lost because of choices made in this marriage. And this court wishes you the very best in rebuilding the life you deserve and in opening those clinics that will honor those women who died. She banged her gavel. We're adjourned. Tanisha stood on shaking legs. Justice was grinning like she'd won the lottery. We won, not just won. We absolutely destroyed them. 55% plus legal fees. That's unheard of. Christopher was already being ushered out by his attorneys, his face purple with rage. He tried to turn back, tried to say something to Tanisha, but Bradford pushed him forward and out the door. But Tanisha didn't care about his reaction. She'd won. Not because of the money, though. That mattered for what she could do with it. She'd won because she'd been heard, been seen, been validated by someone with power who looked at the evidence and said, yes, you matter, what happened to you was wrong, and he will pay for it. She walked out of that courthouse into bright Los Angeles sunshine, feeling like she could breathe for the first time in months. The air tasted different, felt different. Freedom had a flavor she'd almost forgotten. Her phone rang immediately. Rita. Did you win? I won. 55% of everything, plus he pays my legal fees. Rita screamed so loud Tanisha had to pull the phone away from her ear. That's my girl. Get to the clinic right now. We've got something to show you. Tanisha drove to Vermont Avenue to the building that was slowly transforming into the clinic she'd dreamed of 15 years ago. When she walked in, there was a banner hanging across the entrance. Destiny, Diamond and Jasmine Community Health Center, opening June 1st, in memory of lives lost, in service of lives saved. Rita was standing there with a group of nurses, all smiling, some crying. Welcome home, Rita said, pulling her into a fierce hug. Tanisha cried, but this time they were good tears, Healing tears, tears of becoming instead of breaking, tears of victory instead of defeat. She'd walked into that courthouse as someone's discarded wife. She walked out as herself, finally, completely herself. Chapter 10. The Woman Who Rose Few Months Later. Tanisha stood outside the Destiny, Diamond and Jasmine Community Health Center on a Saturday morning in November, watching a young mother push a stroller through the doors. The woman was coming for her free prenatal checkup. The baby in the stroller, a healthy boy born 3 months ago, had been delivered at County General with Tanisha assisting. The clinic had been open for 5 months. In that time, they'd served over 800 women, provided free prenatal care, free screenings, free education. Saved at least 2 lives that Tanisha knew of, women who came in with dangerous complications that would have killed them without intervention. She'd also completed her nurse practitioner certification, was now the clinic's medical director, had hired 5 other nurses and 2 volunteer doctors, was in talks with the city about expanding to a second location. Christopher had tried to fight the divorce settlement, had filed appeals, had attempted to freeze her clinic funding, had given interviews calling her vindictive and cruel. His attorneys had dragged it out for months, costing him a fortune in legal fees. In the end, he'd lost everything he fought for. The settlement stood. Judge Kessler's ruling was upheld. Tanisha owned 55% of his firm. She'd immediately sold her shares back to him at fair market value, taking the lump sum to fund the clinic, and 3 more like it she planned to open in the next 2 years. She'd heard through mutual acquaintances that Sienna had given birth to a girl in August, that Christopher was trying to be a good father, that his firm was struggling financially after the divorce settlement and the reputational damage from the public trial. She felt nothing hearing this news. Not satisfaction, not pain, just nothing. He was someone she used to know. That was all. "Morning, boss." Rita appeared beside her with 2 cups of coffee. "You're here early." Couldn't sleep, too excited about the expansion proposal. They'd submitted a grant application to open clinics in 3 more underserved areas. If approved, they'd be able to serve thousands more women, save hundreds more lives. "You look different," Rita observed. "Happy. When's the last time you looked happy?" Tanisha thought about it. 15 years ago, before I met him. "Well, welcome back." They walked inside together. The clinic was already buzzing with activity, even though it was barely 7. Women in the waiting room, some pregnant, some with small children, nurses prepping exam rooms, a doctor reviewing charts. This was what Tanisha had given up. This purpose, this meaning, this feeling of mattering in ways that transcended one person or one relationship. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Is this Tanisha Norwood? I got your number from my cousin Aliyah. You helped her at County General a few months ago. I'm in a bad situation and need help. Can you call me?" Tanisha stared at the message. Aliyah, the young woman from the ER who'd been pregnant and being abused. She'd delivered her baby safely, had left her boyfriend, was living in a shelter and rebuilding her life. Now she was sending other women to Tanisha, paying it forward. Tanisha typed back, "Come to this address today, we'll help you. You're not alone." She added the clinic address and sent it. Rita looked over her shoulder, read the message. "That's the 4th one this week." "Good. That's what we're here for." The morning passed in a blur of patients and consultations and crisis management. A woman with gestational diabetes who needed insulin, a teenager pregnant and terrified to tell her parents, a mother of 3 worried about affording prenatal vitamins, each woman left with care, with resources, with hope. Around 2, Tanisha took a break, walked to the small office she'd set up in the back. On the wall were 3 photos: Destiny Williams, Diamond Ross, Jasmine Porter, the women who'd died, the women she hadn't saved. But below their photos were dozens more, women she had saved, babies born healthy, lives that continued because this clinic existed. She sat at her desk, looked at the pile of paperwork, grant applications, expansion proposals, hiring requests, All of it overwhelming and exhausting, and exactly what she wanted to be doing. Her phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. "This is Tanisha. Tanisha Norwood. This is Dr. Helen Rodriguez from UCLA Medical Center. I'm calling about your grant application for the expansion project." Tanisha's heart rate picked up. "Yes? I wanted to personally call to tell you that your application has been approved. Full funding for 3 additional clinics. Congratulations." Tanisha couldn't speak for a moment. When she found her voice, it was shaky. "Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. What you're doing is remarkable. These clinics are going to save lives. Real lives. That matters more than anything." After hanging up, Tanisha sat very still. Then she got up and walked to the photos on the wall, looked at Destiny, Diamond, and Jasmine. "I'm sorry I couldn't save you," she whispered, "but I'm saving others in your name, and I'll keep saving them for as long as I can." She thought about Christopher briefly, wondered if he ever drove past the clinic, saw the names on the building, understood what he'd really cost. Probably not. Men like him rarely did. But it didn't matter anymore. He'd given her 15 years of lies, but he'd also given her one truth. She was stronger without him, better without him, more herself without him. Her phone buzzed, a text from James. "Saw the news about your grant approval. Congratulations, Mrs. Bale, or should I say Dr. Norwood." She smiled. James had left Christopher's employment the day after the divorce finalized, now worked part-time at the clinic managing administration. They'd become genuine friends, the kind built on respect and shared purpose. She texted back, "Dr. Norwood sounds perfect." Another text came in, this one from Monique. "Heard about your clinic expansion. That's really great. I'm proud of you." Tanisha stared at it. They hadn't spoken since that day in the restaurant. Part of her wanted to ignore it, but a smaller, softer part remembered they used to be close. Used to be family. She typed back, "Thank you." Nothing more. Maybe someday they'd rebuild. Maybe not. But Tanisha was learning that you didn't have to keep people who hurt you just because they were blood. Family was something you built, not something you were born into. Rita knocked on her office door. "We've got a situation in room 3. Woman in preterm labor at 30 weeks. Ambulance is 15 minutes out." Tanisha was on her feet immediately, doctor mode activated. They stabilized the woman, got her to the hospital safely. The baby was born that night, tiny but strong, and would spend a month in NICU before going home healthy. Another life saved. Tanisha drove home that night to the small apartment she'd rented in mid-city. 1 bedroom, nothing fancy, but it was hers, filled with books and plants and things she'd chosen. No ghosts, no lies, no performance. She poured herself wine, stood at her window looking at the city lights, thought about where she'd been 6 months ago, broken, lost, drowning. Now she was here, building something real, saving lives, being herself without apology. Her phone rang one last time, unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then something made her pick up. "Hello?" Heavy breathing. Then a familiar voice, slurred with alcohol. "You destroyed my life." Christopher. "I'm hanging up now." "Wait, please. I just need to understand. How could you do this to me after everything I gave you?" Tanisha laughed, couldn't help it. "What you gave me, Christopher, you gave me nothing but pain and lies. What I have now, I built myself, from the ashes of what you destroyed. I loved you." "No. You loved what I could do for you. There's a difference. I made one mistake. You made 1,000 mistakes. Every day for months you chose to lie, chose to betray me, chose someone else. Those weren't mistakes. They were choices." Silence on the line. "I hope you're happy," he said bitterly. "You took everything from me. I took what was mine, what I helped build, what I earned. You still have your firm, your career, your daughter. You still have more than most people will ever have, but you don't have me anymore, and that, Christopher, is your real loss. Not the money, not the house, me. You lost someone who would have loved you forever, who did love you despite everything, and you'll never get that back." She hung up. blocked the number, poured the rest of her wine down the sink. She didn't need it. Didn't need anything to numb the pain anymore because the pain was finally starting to heal. She got ready for bed. Set her alarm for 5. She had an early surgery assist at County General, then a full day at the clinic. She walked to her bedroom, paused at the mirror, looked at herself, really looked. The woman staring back wasn't the one who'd sat alone in that restaurant 6 months ago. Wasn't the broken wife who'd discovered her husband's betrayal. Wasn't the ghost who'd disappeared into someone else's life. This woman had scars, had lines on her face that hadn't been there before, had eyes that had seen too much pain, but she also had something she'd lost 15 years ago: purpose, power, peace. She thought about the young woman who'd walked into Christopher's studio apartment all those years ago, the nurse with big dreams and fierce determination, the fighter who'd believed she could change the world. "I'm sorry I forgot you," she whispered to that girl. "I'm sorry I let him erase you, but I remember now, and I promise you, I'm never forgetting again." Tomorrow, she'd save more lives, build more futures, be more herself. Christopher had tried to erase her, had succeeded for 15 years, but she'd done something he never expected. She'd come back, not as his wife, not as anyone's supporting character, not as half a person trying to fit into someone else's story, but as herself, fully, fiercely, finally. The woman he'd underestimated had risen from the ashes he'd left behind, and she was building an empire of compassion on the ruins of his betrayal. She climbed into bed, turned off the light, and smiled in the darkness. Because tomorrow she'd wake up as Dr. Tanisha Norwood, not Mrs. Christopher Bale, not someone's discarded wife, not a woman defined by her pain, just Tanisha, the nurse who saved lives, the woman who'd remembered who she was meant to be, and that was more than enough. It was everything.